Hey everyone, Mr. Harvey here. Let's continue and let's finish our lecture on chapter 13, ladies and gentlemen. And today we are going to be talking about the really important revolutions of 1848, ladies and gentlemen. In this chapter, ladies and gentlemen, we've been really focused on the Industrial Revolution, some of the changes with the Industrial Revolution, the effects of the Industrial Revolution. In the last lecture, we talked about the ideologies of socialism and communism, the revolutions of 1848. We're going to kind of switch gears a little bit, and we're going to kind of go back to chapter 12 a little bit. And today we're going to be focusing on, with these revolutions, those isms of conservatism, of nationalism, of liberalism. And we're going to really see a culmination of the tension between those isms really come to fruition with these revolutions of 1848. And the revolutions of 1848, ladies and gentlemen, you can start on your notes. Really important topic. Shows up on DBQs, LEQs, SAQs, multiple choice. It will be on the AP exam. Very important for us. So let's get into it. Okay. So the revolutions of 1848, ladies and gentlemen, are a series of revolutions, liberal and nationalistic, that are just going to erupt across Europe. And so we are going to see Europe really enter, ladies and gentlemen, a period of instability. Okay, and again, it's not like a single thing is going to be causing these events. What it is that tension between the isms that has been really developing for quite some time. And similar conditions are going to exist in several countries that really facilitate these revolutions. Okay, now really important for us to note, ladies and gentlemen. A couple countries are going to not experience revolution, and that's significant, okay? And that's going to be Great Britain and Russia for vastly different reasons. Great Britain because they've taken care of a lot of the problems. The Great Reform Bill, right? The Factory Acts, okay? The Mines Acts. They've handled their business. They have handled the problems, okay? Taking care of people. Russia, on the other hand, has been so oppressive that revolution just won't be able to take hold. So we're seeing Great Britain, and it's important to note this, ladies and gentlemen. Great Britain is avoiding revolution because of reform. Russia is avoiding revolution because of oppression, because they are so conservative, because they are so they have a grip on the population. The government has such a tight grip on the population, the people, that it's not going to be able to go down. Okay. All right. Let's talk about some of the causes, ladies and gentlemen. Food shortages, okay? There's going to be some food problems, okay? And when people are hungry, they're going to get upset. A really a good example of this is going to be the famine in Ireland. But remember, Great Britain's going to take care of that problem through legislation, right? Getting rid of the corn laws, okay? Trying to help the Irish, okay? Get food. Great Britain's there's a reason why there's this famine in Ireland, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to lead to a revolution in Great Britain. Well, Great Britain's going to pass laws to try to help them. All right. But the famine in Ireland, it just is the worst example of the situation all across Europe of famine and people are hungry. All right. We're going to see an economic depression, both commercial and industrial, within Europe. All right. Unemployment is going to be widespread. We're going to see inadequate systems of relief, of social relief for lower income populations. All right. The urban conditions are terrible. And so a lot of this, so we're going to see the economies of Europe, ladies and gentlemen, going through some instability. But one of the main reasons why there's going to be revolution within this is, well, Europe, the Industrial Revolution is going on, okay? And when I say the Industrial Revolution, ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing those industrial changes. That doesn't necessarily mean there's this massive economic growth, okay? There's massive changes going on. And we're seeing some European countries have a hard time having a really hard time dealing with those changes and taking care of the people. The inadequate systems of relief, economic help for the lower income populations. The urban conditions, all right, not rebuilding the cities and making them safer, healthier. That's going to lead to some serious discontent. And a government inaction from a lot of these situations. Remember, Great Britain saw this going down, had a great pulse on what was going down, and they had all those reforms to handle these problems that we're seeing. France, the German countries, Austria, that they're going to be going through, Italy, Great Britain's handled it. All right, so really important for us to understand that the other governments aren't, and that's going to lead to revolution. All right. But really important, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to see an alliance between the liberals and the workers. Now, the liberals are going to join the urban workers to put additional pressure on governments for political change. Okay, they want to see liberal political change, freedom of speech, the right to a fair trial, right, Enlightenment ideals, constitutions, etc., etc. Okay, so liberals they have a goal, and they want political change. The workers, okay, they want more social change, better working conditions, urban conditions. Okay, they don't really necessarily care about a liberal government, constitution, freedom of speech, Enlightenment ideals that the liberals do. All right. They simply want more social reform, and we're going to see that initially this alliance is going to work out between the two, but eventually we'll see with these differing goals, some of these revolutions are not going to kind of work out, and the workers are more likely to be violent. Okay, starving, having terrible conditions, they're more likely to lash out, and we will see them lash out. Okay, so the results of these revolutions, and we're going to kind of go through each and talk about each, is that the immediate results are pretty unprecedented, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, never had Europe experienced so many uprisings in a single year. We're going to see the French monarchy fall. Okay, we're going to see France have another revolution. Okay, no surprise there. All right, and we are going to, this is just going to create a lot of instability. And really, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be foreshadowing the instability that we are going to be seeing on the onset of World War I. Okay, this instability isn't just going to go away after the revolutions of 1848. We're going to see some significant changes, and then eventually we're going to see a massive war. Okay, so this is just kind of foreshadowing some issues that Europe is, kind of trying to sweep under the rug, and they're going to come out. All right. So, but many of these revolutions are going to largely fail, ladies and gentlemen. And there's a couple of different reasons why. Number one is conservatism was very resilient. Okay, and we're going to see conservatism stick around for quite some time. We're going to see a divide between the liberals and the urban workers, and this is a big reason why is, well, they had differing goals, right? Liberals want they want liberal change, political change. The workers want social change. And, the liberals can't just push for political reform without social reform. They needed the urban class. They needed the workers. Okay, but we're going to see the liberals, not necessarily fight for social change as much as they're going to fight for political change. And that's really going to leave a sour taste in the mouth of the workers. And they're not necessarily going to, when these revolutions, start, going to support the liberals as much as the liberals need. Okay, but here's a map, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to show just the revolutions, all over Europe, ladies and gentlemen. We see a couple in France. That's going to be the epicenter, the kind of the instigator, the start. We're going to see Germany, Austria, Italy, really important for us. Okay, let's talk about France, ladies and gentlemen. So the revolutions of 1848 are first going to start in France, and we have that quote that we have that I've mentioned within the French Revolution, the initial French Revolution of 1789 to 1815, the prior French Revolution of 1830, ladies and gentlemen, and then we have another revolution of 1848. Okay, and remember that quote, ladies and gentlemen. When France sneezes, the rest of Europe is going to catch that cold. It's going to happen again. Okay, so we're going to have and understand this. You don't necessarily need to get into specifics, ladies and gentlemen. Let's think bigger picture here, okay? But this revolution is going to start with this February Revolution, where the liberals are going to overthrow the regime of Louis Philippe, okay? And Louis Philippe is going to be forced to abdicate to England. And so we are going to see this revolution in France become a liberal revolution led by Louis Blanc. We've talked about him earlier with socialism, okay, and Alphonse de Lamartine, and they both wanted a social and political revolution, and they aimed to write a republican constitution to help the working class. Okay, so we're going to see this new government, this provisional government, establish a national workshop to help the unemployed and make some drastic reforms very much in the spirit of the Enlightenment. They're going to abolish slavery. We're going to see a 10-hour workday, social reform for workers, abolish the death penalty, okay? And we're going to see an election in April lead to the creation of a new National Assembly based on universal male suffrage, and that's going to lead to an election, okay? Now, really important for us, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to see the conservatives and moderates who are elected to this new National Assembly, very much fear that the liberals are going to, be, very radical and enact a lot of, more socialist ideals. And so we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, the conservatives and moderates within this new government close national workshops, and we're going to see some class warfare going on, and that's known as the June Revolution. Okay, and let's talk about that. All right, this June Revolution, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see in 1848 Louis Napoleon. He's the nephew of our original Napoleon Bonaparte, and he's going to be elected president. And we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, in 1851, he's going to lead, very similar to his uncle, a coup, overthrow the government, seize power from the National Assembly, okay, as they would not allow him to run for re-election. And we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, 1852, Louis Napoleon is going to become Emperor Napoleon III and start the Second French Empire. So we have a couple really important notes to make of this French Revolution, ladies and gentlemen. Number one is we see the Second French Republic during this time, okay, and that was created within the original Revolution of 1848. And then also with this coup in 1851, we're going to see the creation of the Second French Empire. Okay, and remember, it's important for us to remember the First French Republic, right? The convention within the French Revolution, and then we had the First French Empire with Napoleon. Now we see the Second Republic during this Revolution of 1848, and then we have now in 1851, 1852, we have the creation of the Second French Empire. Important for us, we'll review that as the AP exam gets closer, but just important for us to have some chronology. Okay? All right, let's talk about French women in 1848, okay? We're going to see between the Revolution of 1848 to the Napoleonic coup in 1851, major feminist action in France. And we're going to see the Vesuvians, this radical group. They're going to demand a full domestic household equality between men and women, the right of women to serve in the military. They're going to advocate for similarity in dress between both of the sexes. And we're going to also see, ladies and gentlemen, this Women's Voice, which would be a newspaper in a group that advocated for women's rights. But by 1852, in the coup of Louis Napoleon, we're going to see Louis Napoleon and this new empire, seek out to silence this women's rights movement, and really ignore women. But something that's interesting I want to point out, ladies and gentlemen, is we are going to be getting, especially into the late 1800s, early 1900s, we're going to be talking more about feminism, more about female suffrage, women's rights, and eventually that's going to be culminating into women gaining the right to vote after World War I, which we will talk about. Okay? All right. So revolution, ladies and gentlemen, in Europe, in France. We are going to see, ladies and gentlemen, in the Habsburg Empire, the Austrian Empire, we are going to see the revolution spread. So remember, the epicenter really starting out France, and we are going to see that revolution spread throughout Europe, okay? And remember, the Habsburg Empire, this Austrian Empire, was very vulnerable to nationalism, to revolution, to liberalism, all right? Liberal institutions, pretty much non-existent, but we know that this empire was more it was most vulnerable to nationalism, right? We know that the empire had numerous national groups: Slavs, Germans, Czechs, Italians. I put Germans twice, okay? Hungarians. Numerous ethnic groups lived in Austria, and they were super fearful of nationalism. Okay, so we're going to see initially this uprising in Vienna, okay? And we are going to see Louis Kossuth, a Hungarian nationalist, call for Hungarian independence. We're going to see students lead disturbances in Vienna. Metternich's just going to run, all right? So the imperial court will run as well. And so we are going to see some serious instability, nationalism, liberalism going on in Austria. And remember, that is like Metternich's worst fear, okay? We know ever since the Congress of Vienna, he had been just an opponent to liberalism and nationalism. If we remember the Buschhoffen, right, with the Carlsbad decrees, okay, this was Metternich's in Austria's worst nightmare. The conservatives in Austria is their worst nightmare. We're going to see one of the ways that the conservatives in Austria handled this is we're going to see the abolishment of serfdom by the Hungarian and Imperial Diet, and that's gonna kind of quiet the Hungarian independence movement down, because now the serfs have little reasons to really support the revolution because they got their freedom. All right. And the abolishment of serfdom in Austria is one of the greatest effects of this 1848 revolution, ladies and gentlemen. Really important for us to understand. All right. But we're going to see some serious instability continue within Hungary, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see this Hungarian Magyar revolt. We're going to see this Vienna revolt inspire more Hungarians in Hungarian territory. Remember, the Hungarian word for Hungarian is Magyar. All right. And we're going to see the March laws become enacted. This is a liberal reform of equality of religion, free trials. All right. And what the Magyars wanted, what the Hungarians wanted, is they want to establish a completely separate Hungarian state with local controls while still under the emperor. And so this is kind of foreshadowing the eventual creation of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, where Hungary has its own state. They're within the empire, but they have local control over their state. But this is going to fail, okay? As Romanians, Croatians, and Serbs who would have been under Hungarian rule, are going to prefer to be with the Habsburgs, and the Romanians, Croatians, Serbs, they're going to call out Hungary and say you're being hypocritical. What about our independence? So you get your independence, but we don't get our independence, and so Hungary was being hypocritical in this notion. They wanted autonomy from the Austrian Empire, but they wanted to, control other ethnic groups. And so those other ethnic groups are not going to support them. They're going to support Austria, as a way to kind of spite Hungary, all right, in this movement for Hungarian independence. Let's talk about the Czechs at this time, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see a large push for Czech nationalism, very similar to Hungarian nationalism. And this was led by Francis Palacky. And he wanted a unified, independent Slavic state within the empire of Slavs. And the Czech nationalists wanted a unified Slavic state, but their efforts were really kind of repressed by the Germans living in that area, because the Germans didn't necessarily want to live in that in a state like that. But what's important to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is this idea of pan-Slavism. And I kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier when I talked about Serbia and that special relationship with Russia. But there's this idea in Eastern Europe, ladies and gentlemen, to create kind of this super Slavic state in Eastern Europe for Slavs to live. Many Slavics are going to fear that Russia would interfere in their affairs. However, we're going to see Russia use pan-Slavism to put pressure on the Habsburgs and the Germans to free Slavic nationals, and we are going to see Serbia, kind of want a Slavic state as well. And eventually, and what I'm getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to see this tension, especially amongst the Slavic state, especially amongst Serbia and Austria, facilitate a war, and that will be World War I. And we'll see Russia rush in to back up the Slavs when that goes down. Okay. We're going to see rebellion in Italy, ladies and gentlemen, in northern Italy. And we're going to see northern Italy rebel, again, to get the Habsburgs out of their territory. And it's going to begin in northern Italy in Milan. And we're going to see King Charles Albert of Piedmont. He wanted to annex Lombardy, of which Milan is the capital. And we're going to see the Austrians say, no, that territory belongs to us. And the Austrians will defeat the northern Italians. Vienna and Hungary are going to be recaptured by the Austrians with the help from the Russians. Again, very conservative, helping them. And we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, Emperor Ferdinand abdicate the throne, and his nephew Francis Joseph is going to take control. But the real power is going to be in the hands of a new prince. His name is Prince Felix Schwarzenberg. But really important for us to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are getting closer to new countries. This conservative order, Austria's grip on conservatism is slowly slipping. And we're seeing liberalism and nationalism just all throughout really disrupt Metternich stream of that conservative order. Okay? And the Italians wanting their freedom. All right, so we're going to see, many Italians, ladies and gentlemen, hoped for a united Italy. And this, goes all the way back, ladies and gentlemen, to when we talked about Machiavelli. Remember, that's what Machiavelli wanted. And that was one of the reasons when he saw that instability, right, with Ludovico Milan. I'm going way back to chapter 2, right, that and the city-states kind of breaking that piece of Lodi, that agreement of, handling their problems themselves. The Italians see in this moment, in the 1800s, with this liberalism and nationalism, the opportunity for finally having a united Italy. And many Italians hoped that Piedmont and Sardinia, that King Charles Albert of Piedmont would drive Austria from the peninsula and pave the way for Italian unification. Many nationalists hoped for the possibility of a united Italy under the Pope. All right, and he had quite a liberal reputation, this Pope Pius. And then you're going to see radicals. There's numerous radical groups led by Mazzini and Garibaldi. Make sure you highlight their names. Very important for the eventual creation of Italy. What these radicals wanted was a republic. They wanted a Roman republic. And eventually, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see so many we're not going to see a lot of unification amongst these Italian nationals that we're going to kind of see some infighting between them. The Pope is going to be really fearful of these radical Italian Republicans, Mazzini and Garibaldi. And eventually, we're going to see the French interfere to protect the Pope, the papacy, again, Catholicism, that's showing that connection between the Catholic Church and France, that Catholicism. And France is going to remain in Italy until the 1870s when they're going to be forced to leave to defend France from the approaching German armies during the Franco-Prussian War. But Pope Pius is going to renounce his liberalism and become very conservative, and we are really going to see, ladies and gentlemen, that movement of Italian nationalism fail. But it's Italy, the creation of Italy is on the way, such as Germany. Okay, Germany. Let's talk about Germany with these revolutions of 1848. We are about to see the creation of a unified Italy and a unified Germany. Revolution is going to spread to Germany as well, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and it's going to start off in Prussia. Okay, Frederick William IV, not super important for us, ladies and gentlemen, but he was initially very opposed to any constitution. But after there's riots in Berlin, he's gonna start to imply and hint that Prussia will help unify Germany and potentially, might end the Prussian monarchy. Frederick William's going to appoint a cabinet. He's going to ignore the cabinet, but he's going to try to appoint a cabinet. All right. He's going to revise the Constitution of 1849, revise the Constitution again in 1850, where the monarch's going to have a ministry, and where the army is loyal to the monarch. What I want to get at with this, ladies and gentlemen, is that Frederick William is really going to kind of play with this idea of liberalism, with unifying and unifying Germany, but he's not, and he's going to mess it up really badly. And eventually, we're going to see OBB, Otto von Bismarck, kind of pick up the pieces of what Frederick William IV failed to do when he unifies Germany. But important for us to kind of understand that Frederick William IV is kind of just leading the liberals on. He's kind of saying, "Oh, I'll have a constitution. Oh, I'll make some of these changes," but he's really not following through. Okay, and he's really not gonna fulfill the wishes of the liberals and nationalists within Germany. And Frederick and his conservative supporters are going to ignore the liberals. They're going to put in a new system of voting based on tax classes, where only 5% of the population elects 33% of the Prussian parliament. But like I said before, Frederick, he's going to try to talk a big game, but he's not really going to follow through. All right. What's important about this, ladies and gentlemen, within Germany, that we're going to kind of end on, is this Frankfurt Parliament. And I want you to highlight this because this is getting us closer to a unified Germany. Okay. Now, this Frankfurt Parliament, intended to write a moderately liberal constitution for a united Germany. We're going to see a split between the German liberals and the working class. But what this Frankfurt Parliament wanted, I'm going to go into more depth on this in the next slide, is they wanted a unified Germany with Prussian leadership. So they wanted Prussia to take hold of the German states, take charge, and lead the way. And we're going to see William IV of Prussia reject this notion of German unification and parliament. And the reason why is he was fearful that unification would that this unification of Germany would bring about radical liberal change. That by now you can tell that Frederick William IV is very conservative. He wants to maintain that conservatism, and he's fearful with this Frankfurt Parliament if they unite all of Germany into this German Empire, which we are going to see with Otto von Bismarck. He's worried that it's going to become liberal, and he will be forced to have a constitution and lose his power, and potentially have to share power with a parliament, or share the majority of his power with someone else. And he's very fearful of this liberalism dominating Germany. Okay. And Prussia was experiencing this upheaval, but so was the German Confederation, okay, in the West. That new German Confederation that, remember, had been reorganized with Napoleon, that Confederation of the Rhine. And so with that Frankfurt Parliament that I want to talk about, we're not just seeing representatives from Prussia, but we're seeing representatives from all of the German states that wanted to, revisit this idea of reorganizing the German Confederation and maybe uniting the German Confederation with Prussia. Okay, and like I said before, they wanted to write a moderately liberal constitution. But the problem with what the liberals did, ladies and gentlemen, is they're going to alienate the conservatives because they want a parliament and a constitution, and they're going to alienate the workers because they didn't want to protect the workers. They didn't want to protect workers' rights, and they didn't want to help the workers. And so the liberals really failed within this because they are going to alienate some of the groups or people that they didn't really establish a coalition amongst other groups to bring this Frankfurt Parliament to fruition. And so we're going to see a split between the liberals and the working class. Now, also, ladies and gentlemen, something I want to talk about within this Frankfurt Parliament that's really important, that's foreshadowing a big issue, is the controversy over Austria, what to do with Austria. And you have a huge controversy. You have Großdeutsch, which is inclusion, to include Austria within the German Empire, or Kleindeutsch, which is exclusion of Austria. And we're going to see this what to do with Austria be a huge battle. Hitler, when he creates the Third Reich within Nazi Germany, he is going to have an approach to Austria of Großdeutsch, of inclusion. And we will see that with Anschluss when he annexes and just incorporates Austria into the empire. OVB will have a different interpretation and perspective when it comes to Austria. He's going to have a policy of Kleindeutsch, of exclusion. So important for us, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see this down the road, but this big argument about what to do with Austria. Okay, Austria is not going to want inclusion and a united Germany. All right, and eventually we're going to see OVB go toe-to-toe with Austria and fight a war with them in order to facilitate the unification of Germany. But important just to understand main idea right here. William IV of Prussia, he's going to reject this unification, reject the parliament. Okay, the movement's going to fail, but ladies and gentlemen, the clouds are gathering. The movement has started. We are getting ready to see a united Germany that is really going to change the game. We're going to see a united Italy. And these isms are showing up. There's instability, and we are on our way, ladies and gentlemen, to World War I, okay, where those isms are really going to play out, okay? It's going to be a big one, especially nationalism. Okay, that's it for Chapter 13, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, okay? In the next lectures, we're going to be talking about, we're going to start with Chapter 14 tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.